The Jamaican electoral system, voting by persons with disabilities. Electors with disabilities have the right to access the electoral system and to exercise their franchise like every other elector on the voters list. Efforts are being made to make changes to the current system in which electors with disabilities are forced to depend on relatives or friends to assist them in voting, or compromise the secrecy of their vote by having the presiding officer vote on their behalf in full view of all present inside the polling station. Under the current law, these are the provisions for voting by persons who have auditory, physical, and visual disabilities. Voting with assistance from a friend. The law provides for a voter with a visual disability to be assisted by a friend when casting his or her ballot. Step 1. Both the elector and the assistant are to approach the presiding officer or poll clerk. The elector is to present his or her ID to the presiding officer or poll clerk and state the reason he or she needs assistance. Step 2. The poll clerk checks the voters list for the elector's name, which verifies his or her ID, and then places a tick on the voters list against the elector's name. Electors without voters ID will be required to take an oath or affirm to their identity. Step 3. The oath of assistance is administered to the elector by the presiding officer. The assistant is also required to take an oath promising to ensure the intent and secrecy of the elector with a disability's vote. Step 4. The presiding officer then inspects the index finger of the elector to make sure there is no sign of electoral ink, which could be an indication the elector had already voted. Step 5. Once the presiding officer is satisfied the elector is eligible to vote in the polling station, a ballot is numbered, initialed, and issued to the elector. The poll clerk then records the relevant information in the poll book. The presiding officer provides instructions on the proper way to mark the ballot to both the elector and assistant, then directs them to the voting booth. Step 6. The ballot is marked by the friend as instructed by the elector, folded, and then returned to the presiding officer, who will double check for initials and serial number. Step 7. The index finger of the elector is then immersed in electoral ink. The counterfoil bearing the serial number of the ballot is removed before it is deposited into the ballot box by the presiding officer, which means no one will be able to say which elector voted on that ballot paper. Step 8. Both elector and assistant leave the polling station. The presiding officer records the form numbers of the different oaths administered. Note: no person is allowed to act as the assistant of more than one elector for the election. Voting with assistance from the presiding officer. The law provides for a voter with a disability to be assisted by the presiding officer when casting his or her ballot. Step 1. The elector with a disability approaches the presiding officer or poll clerk. The elector presents his or her ID and states the reason for the need for assistance. Step 2. The poll clerk checks the voters list for the elector's name, verifies his or her ID, and then places a tick on the voters list against the elector's name. Step 3. The presiding officer administers the oath in the presence of the indoor agents and poll clerk. Step 4. The presiding officer then inspects the index finger of the elector if available to make sure there is no sign of electoral ink, which could be an indication the elector had already voted. Step 5. Once satisfied, a ballot is numbered, initialed, issued, and marked by the presiding officer as instructed by the elector in the presence of the poll clerk and indoor agents at the presiding officer's table. The poll clerk records the relevant information in the poll book. Step 6. The presiding officer will double check the initials and serial number. Step 7. The index finger of the elector, if available, is then immersed in electoral ink. The counterfoil bearing the serial number of the ballot is removed before it is deposited into the ballot box by the presiding officer, which means no one will be able to say which elector voted on that ballot paper. This must be done in the presence of the poll clerk and indoor agents. Step 8. The elector leaves the polling station. The presiding officer enters the form number of the oath administered. Note: the presiding officer can assist any number of electors with disabilities.